For those of you who have been to my show, I talk about how important it is to build relationships to avoid viral vengeance. If you're not sure what viral vengeance is, come see my show. How do we take responsibility for the relationships in our lives? Of course, we know that we want to treat others with love. And whether that love is the most important love we have in our life, an acquaintance that we see 12 times a year, or someone in between, like a coworker. It's important that we take responsibility for those relationships. And the reason is simple. If you have good relationships, you will benefit from it. And you'll be able to achieve things you never thought were possible before. Conversely, if you have bad relationships, you will pay for it. And it will be more difficult to achieve what seems even easy to others. So, if we're going to take responsibility for relationships, how do we actually build them? Well, it's a skill, actually. One that can be taught and luckily can be learned. So I want to tell you about the 4 steps. What's most important is agreement. Have an agreement with the person that they want to be part of your relationship. They want to have a relationship with you. So let's talk about the 4 steps to cement a loving relationship, regardless of the definition of love. So step number 1 is communication. It's so important to communicate with others, especially if it's an intimate relationship. Communication is key. How many people do you know that fight all the time but never really talk about their feelings? Sometimes communication is difficult. The way we get around this is we sit down with the person and we say, listen, I would much rather communicate something difficult to you now than pay for it decades from now or years from now by losing our relationship. And again, it doesn't matter whether that relationship is a marriage, a business partnership, an acquaintance. You decide what's important to you. The cool thing is that you're in control. Now you get to decide who you have loving relationships with or not. Never forget, it's your responsibility, no matter what the other person does. The first thing is communication. Once we get agreement on communication, then we can go on to the next step. So the number 1 question I get is, what if I have this discussion and the other person doesn't want to communicate with me? Well, we can sit and be right, or we can go achieve our goal, which is to have a better relationship with that person. Actually, with everyone. So how we do that is by start communicating with them. When we do communicate, we want them to understand our position, the kind of relationship we want to have with them, any frustrations that we have with the current relationship we have with them. However, there's a trick, and the trick is first to understand them, and only then try to be understood. If somebody's not treating you right, or is frustrated with you, or is being a jerk, try to understand why. What is it? Try to understand their point of view. Ask them questions that don't judge them in any way. Remember, we're trying to be loving here. So think about, if you were going to ask somebody you love, how would you approach the question? So the key to communication is to first seek understanding, and only then, seek to be understood. Which is the second step, understanding. Once you understand somebody, now all of a sudden there's a whole new level to the relationship. Not only that they've shared something with you that perhaps others don't know, and maybe you've built a confidence with them, but now you have the ability to share with them and have them understand your point of view. Only through communication can we gain understanding. Once we have understanding, we can go to the next step. Understanding creates trust. When someone's confided in you to help you understand, and you confided back to help them understand, that's going to build trust. The more communication you use, the more understanding you'll develop, the more trust you'll have. Just imagine the relationships where you're frustrated. If now all of a sudden there was understanding and trust. The problem is, we tend to spend most of our time saying, why don't they understand me? And then wonder why there's no trust either on our side or their side. Imagine if we said to ourselves, how can we understand them better? And then use communication to gain that understanding. Once we have a foothold in understanding, the trust will come. It's only through trust we can reach the fourth level of any relationship. The goal, the real goal, and that's intimacy. Now, there's a big difference between intimacy and sex, so let's get that out of the way. It doesn't matter your relationship. Certainly you have friends that you have no interest of having romance with. Have intimacy, relationships with intimacy. You can have intimacy with your business partnership. You can have intimacy with your best friend. And it's going to be different than the kind of intimacy that you seek with your mate. It doesn't really matter what we're talking about when we say intimacy. The point is how we get there. And we get there through trust. Only through trust will intimacy grow. And only through understanding will trust grow. And only through communication can we gain more understanding. If you use these 4 steps in all of your relationships and take responsibility for every relationship you have, you'll be surprised. The number of friends you have, not just on your Facebook page, but in your real life, will grow tremendously. And all of a sudden, people will start liking you. That builds on itself. When you meet somebody new and everybody in the room likes you and starts treating you like they like you, all of a sudden those people are like, wow, this is a good guy or a girl. And they decide for themselves that they like you too. It's like a snowball going downhill. Only instead of having everybody against you, which you may feel, it's the other way around. Everybody will start liking you. Now, I had an issue like this as well. And one of the words I talk about in the show is because. And I actually was building a snowball of people not liking me. So how do you turn that around? Well, it takes some time. It takes some patience and it takes love. And first you have to trust. And through communication, understanding, trust. Only through communication, understanding, and trust will you ever develop intimate relations. Will you ever develop intimate relationships with the people in your life? By taking responsibility for all 4 steps. Soon you will have people going behind your back, and instead of stabbing you in the back, I have people every day go behind my back and clear the path. There have been times where I've been in business meetings where the person is like, yeah, of course I want to do business with you. Only later to find that somebody, a close friend of mine or even an acquaintance, who I took responsibility of the 4 steps and built an intimate relationship with, went behind my back and called that person and said, hey, I heard you're meeting with Johnnie Lynch. He's a really good guy. You're going to want to do business with him. So if you've ever had somebody stab you in the back, or stop you from achieving your goal. Imagine if it's the other way around, people going behind your back helping you achieve your goals. They'll be so inspired by you. They'll want to see you win. Now you'll be able to achieve things you never thought were possible when you have dozens of people excited about you becoming successful.